Welcome back to FastCast. This week, Dell is returning to talk about NIH-focused SBIR and STTR packages. So to get things started, Dell, what is the National Institute of Health, also known as NIH, and what do they focus on?
So the National Institutes of Health, or NIH for short, is the research-focused arm of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. The NIH seeks to push the state of research forward for all aspects related to healthcare and overall human health. And their mission is to seek fundamental knowledge about the nature and behavior of living systems and the application of that knowledge to enhance health, lengthen life, and reduce illness and disability. Essentially, the NIH actually does research, studies, reports, and symposiums on human physiology and what changes to human physiology come about. When we say institutes also, it's not actually a typo. The National Institutes of Health is made up of 27 different components that are a mixture of institutes and centers. And each one of these actually tries to push the state of research forward for all aspects related to healthcare and overall human health, while taking a very small portion of that. And what I mean by that is, NIH is made up of a number of arms that focus on different aspects of human physiology. Some of them focus on a very specific disability or illness, such as the National Cancer Institute. Some of them focus on a really specific body part, such as the National Eye Institute. And some of them are a little less obvious, such as the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering. But as that implies, that's actually pushing forward with human physiology and kind of pushing the envelope forward as we look into the future with how can we change the human body. So all that info would imply, they're really interested on innovations in tech that push the state of art and state of research forward for helping ailing Americans and helping healthy Americans live longer. Also, because there are so many components to their organizational structure, they all have vastly different focuses when it comes to their topic areas for SBIR. NIH does participate in the SBIR and STTR programs, and in fact, they are the second largest funder in those programs behind the Department of Defense. So when we talk about how their focuses change between the topic areas, it's largely guided by what institute or center is actually putting out that topic area. For instance, a cancer-focused institute is not really too keen on research for aspects such as addiction mitigation and addiction alleviation. There are other departments that actually are other institutes that actually focus on that. Also, because the NIH is so individualized within their institutes and within their centers, there could be changes to the requirements and the pool of funding available under the solicitation. So one institute may not actually have enough funding to match what the minimum is for a different institute. So it's really key to pay attention in that topic area solicitation to the different funding requirements and the different funding pools for those different institutes.
Could you tell us about creating an NIH-focused SBIR and STTR package?
So when creating an SBIR or STTR package, there's a number of different requirements you have to go through first before you even start writing your first sentence. And these requirements show up across pretty much every single funding agency and not just NIH. So your first requirement is to do your registrations. It's come up many times in the past and it will probably come up more in the future, but that's because doing your registrations is such an integral first step for completing your package. And all of these registrations that are required by any agency will be getting their own MacroCAST where we focus on that registration and do a step-by-step guide to creating your registration with actual screen recording done and with some voiceover for a little bit of tips, tricks, best practices, a little bit of assistance, anything that's dictated. So with NIH, besides the big three, which are your SAM, your DUNS, and your SBC Control ID, which is issued through SBIR.gov, NIH also requires grants.gov and ERA Commons for their registration. Grants.gov is the way you're going to actually access the solicitation package and to submit it. And ERA Commons is a site that NIH uses to share administrative information between the agency and the awardee relating to a research grant. Again, as with most registrations, all of these registrations are free for a small business, but some may take a while to complete, so definitely make sure you do them early. So next, after doing your registrations, your second requirement is to actually select a topic. As mentioned earlier, topic areas can be wildly different between the component organizations at NIH. They can be short and broad, or they can be very long and very focused. Typically, though, they will cover only research principles, or they can also cover some applied research with a little bit of prototyping. Whatever topic you look at, make sure you have the wherewithal to perform under that topic. So some questions to ask yourself is, do I, or the PI that I've actually assigned for this project, have the necessary know-how and expertise to perform and deliver results under this topic area? While the PI doesn't have to be a PhD or an MD, they have to have the requisite background to perform under that topic area and perform the research capacity that is being solicited. While you're going through the topic areas too, look for key markers within that topic area that talk about aspects such as research priorities, mission statements, programmatic goals, things of that nature. If you notice those, that's actually your direct guidance on what to put in your SBIR package or STTR package, and what highlights to make within that data and within that package so that they can easily tie your submission directly to that topic area. Thirdly, before you get too far down that rabbit hole, you want to actually verify that you are eligible. So the first verification is, are you eligible to actually submit a proposal to NIH under the SBIR or STTR proposals? First question with that is, of course, are you a small business as defined by the SBA size standard? Again, the SBA size standard is a little bit different than what most organizations and most businesses would consider small or large. It actually does vary by your NAICS or NAICS code, which is an industry classification system. But a good figure to use is if you have 500 or fewer employees, you can be considered a small business or by the SBA size standard. Secondly, is your PI employed more than 50% with the business? Every single agency requires that the PI, at least for under a SBIR topic, be employed by the business at least 50.1% of their time. Some of them, like the STTR, the PI can be employed by the research institution, but under the SBIR, it has to be with the small business itself. And again, when you're going through the topic areas, as you're verifying your eligibility, make sure you can accomplish all the requirements and the stated work needs that go into that topic area, or even into the submission overall. As mentioned, you do have to have expertise in the area, and you also have to possess the necessary technical and entrepreneurial knowledge to pull the project off. So now that you've made sure you meet all the requirements, the next thing you want to do is actually start to create your proposal package. The first part of that is to shred the RFP. And by shredding the RFP, we actually mean going through it with a fine-tooth comb and making sure that all the required data types and information needed to create the package is already in hand, or that is easily accessible. You also start, when you're shredding the RFP, you want to start pulling the relevant information about different forms and what is necessary to complete those forms. After you've shredded the RFP, you then use that information to build a compliance matrix. Essentially, your compliance matrix is a working outline for your proposal package. In your compliance matrix, it should have all the formatting requirements, pagination requirements, section titles, guidance for the information required in those sections, and also where you can find the fillable forms that come along with just about every single SBIR or STTR package. When you're doing your compliance matrix, it's really easiest to build a table around that information and also to have a cell within that table for verification purposes. That way, once a section is completed, the requirements are in there and has been verified to be accurate, you can check that section off and know that you don't have to go back to that section anymore as you're putting together your package. The next thing you want to start doing for your proposal package creation is to start working your budget. It seems like that may be skipping a step forward if you're starting your budget before you actually start writing, but your budget can be very tricky, especially if you have a subaward that's mixed into that. So really with your budget, you want to start work early on it, and you want to amend it often as new information is put into there. With your budget too, you want to make sure that all the guidance is followed to the T. If they say that only certain costs are allowed under a line item, or that a line item can only be such a certain dollar amount or certain figure, or a line item can only be a certain percentage of other line items, then make sure that information is in there. Because when you do fill out on grants.gov for the budget, they have controls built into there to verify totals as you type them in. And if you're running late with your submission, you don't want to be stuck at the last minute because you're having to rework entire number tables to get the figures to where they need to be. And as you make your budget, you want to make sure it's feasible. That's going to be one of the things that every single agency looks at. The items that are in there, is it feasible to actually have that cost in there, and is it necessary? So in your proposal package and in your budget, if you put that you need to buy a $10,000 laptop in there, then you really need a lot of justification for why that laptop has to be that price and why that laptop has to be that certain brand or that certain model. So now that you've done all that, you want to actually start writing your package. A number of the sections that are required for every agency show up across multiple agencies. Things such as facilities and equipment, key personnel, previous history, but one of the other ones is commercialization. Every single agency wants you to have some sort of commercialization prospects for the innovation. Because again, the SBIR and the STTR programs are actually set up to start to move innovation forward towards the marketplace. And as you're writing your package, try to use prior work and prior writing as much as possible. It'll actually make your life a lot easier. And, of course, again, your compliance matrix is your guide. It should be able to dictate to you exactly what information needs to go into a section, in what format, and what are the key requirements that need to be covered under that section. If you're working with others, one of the things you want to probably try and do is create a shared collaboration space. This way multiple people can be working on the same document and see changes as they happen without working on different versions of a document and then trying to have to integrate all the changes across 8 or 9 different versions of a single document. And as you're writing your proposal package, make sure you write towards your audience. Use the language from the RFP as much as possible. They put that language in there because that is the guidance, and it shows what they're actually going to focus on when they review each proposal package. And most agencies want a proposal written and a proposal that comes to them that sounds like it was actually written by subject matter experts. They don't want a proposal that sounds like it was actually just written by a grant or contract clearinghouse who has been hired to make sure that somebody wins a proposal. It's very easy to tell when you're looking at technical skills and technical writing in a proposal, on a proposal that has come from industry and a proposal that has come from a place that does a clearinghouse. There's just certain markers that are in there that look a little bit strange or don't have all the technical knowledge that is necessary to convey the ideal in that particular section.
What are some of the best practices for NIH proposal packages?
That's a great question, Garrett. And this cast wouldn't be complete without going to some very specific knowledge and best practices for submitting a successful NIH proposal under the SBIR or STTR programs. So with NIH, You always want to push forward the health aspects of your innovation or technology. Don't try to improve a technology just to improve it. All of the innovations or technology that come forward in a proposal package should generate quantifiable data at the end of the project on the improvements to American health, American healthcare, or just overall improvements to American life. Also with NIH, senior and key personnel are defined a little bit differently than the other agencies. Senior and key personnel are defined as all individuals who contribute in a substantive, meaningful way to the scientific development or execution of the project, whether or not salaries are requested. So this distinction is a little bit important to note, as other agencies define senior and key personnel as those people who you're requiring budget for to cover part of their salary. NIH considers anyone that's going to help move the idea forward and that's working on the project as senior or key personnel. This is also important because it allows you to fill out your team and make sure that you show that your team has the required knowledge, the required technical capability, and the required entrepreneurial capability to move your idea forward, eventually towards market. As you write your proposal package, you want to focus on a couple different things. One, you want to make sure that what you're writing is as succinct and accurate of the description of the proposed work. Also, you want to make sure that your proposal package can stand on its own. And your proposal package should be informative to other persons working in the same or related fields and understandable to a scientifically literate reader. Essentially, you just want to get all the information across in as short and condensed space as possible while making sure that it's concrete. And you want to make sure that you're not using a lot of technical jargon or contradictory words. If a reviewer is constantly having to go to a Google search to see usage of an acronym or try and figure out what you were trying to say with a different word choice than normal, then you might have worded things a little bit wrong. And one of the reasons you want to be as succinct as possible is that the bulk of your proposal, and essentially the portion of your proposal that describes what you are doing under the project, is your research strategy. Your research strategy under NIH can only be 6 pages long. To put that in perspective, other agencies have a full technical proposal that can be 15 to 20 pages long. But NIH wants to make sure that those 6 pages contain all the information that's necessary for a reviewer to make a yes or no decision. And the way you do that is to cover 3 very important areas. 1, you have to cover the significance, which includes a possible commercialization of the project or the innovation. So by covering the significance, you're essentially telling them why it's important that you get funding to work on this project or to move this innovation or technology forward to help improve health for Americans and American healthcare systems. Also, in that research strategy, you want to cover the innovation. You want to make sure you have all the information in there about your innovation and what it actually does for the market. And then thirdly, your approach. How are you going to try and bring that forward? So again, essentially, in your research strategy, you should cover what are you doing, how are you doing it, and why the reviewer, and ultimately NIH, should care about funding that proposal. So for the scoring, NIH actually scores it on 5 different criteria: significance, investigators, innovation, approach, and environment. Obviously, 3 of those 5 come directly from your research strategy. The other 2, though, investigators and environment, come from other documentation that's in that proposal package. For investigators, a reviewer has to make sure that you have the correct team aligned and the correct team on the project to ultimately hopefully bring, the proposed project to a successful mission end. And the way you do that is by a lot of the information you put in there, such as the senior and key personnel and their biographical sketches. If a reviewer cannot glance at a person's biographical sketch and tell that they're an integral part of that project, you may also have the wrong people in some of the sections of your project. And then the environment is actually not the overall environment for the world or the globe. The environment is the area that you're going to conduct your research in and what exists there. Is the environment conducive to you actually being able to successfully complete your mission with a project? Do you have everything you need to do that? Or are you working in a cross-complementary or contradictory nature to what is already within your individual ecosystems? So in summation, really, with your proposal to NIH, you want to make sure your project goals are realistic. You want to be organized and logical. You want to write in clear, concise language. You want to be able to sell your idea on paper, because you can think of this as an elevator pitch. You only have so long to capture the reviewer's interest and keep them hooked and make them want to fund your project. And one of the other best tips you can ever have is to share your proposal out with friends and colleagues that can provide comment and review before your submission. As a reminder, NMFAST will actually look at somebody's proposal package and review it for a comment on it based on the review guidelines and the review guidance that each agency has.
Thank you again, Dell. If you would like more information about the New Mexico FAST program, please visit arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu/NMFAST. Next time on FastCast, Dell will return to talk about the USDA.